On day 0, you heard a very large amount of information. And if you heard it for the first time, it is quite impossible that you remembered everything. Now that you have gotten used to the work in the kitchen, and it's easier for you to relate, understand, and remember, we will quickly again go through some of the most important things you heard on day 0. Personal clothes and private clothes should not be stored together. This also applies for shoes, so leave the kitchen shoes upstairs and never use the kitchen shoes outside. Always use an apron and a hairnet when working in the kitchen. Aprons should never leave the main building. Take it off if you, for example, go to the earth cellar or take out garbage. An exception is when you ring the gong. You can keep your apron as long as you are sure it doesn't touch anything which can contaminate it. Always wash your hands after touching anything unclean, like your face or your hair. Always wash your hands between handling dirty dishes and handling clean dishes. Never leave the kitchen or your area unclean when taking a break, for example when you go for group meditation. And always remember to cover all food so that no flies or mice can get to it whenever you leave the kitchen or dining halls. In the big blue containers, we only put food which is already packaged. That is, we never put unpackaged food directly into the blue containers. When cleaning something very dirty, for example the parts for the floor drains, only use the brush designated for dirty use only. Don't use a brush which will be used to clean the dishes afterwards. Don't leave any organic waste in the kitchen overnight. Remember the organic waste from the dishwashing room. Switch bins outside whenever the bin by the wall to the workshop gets full. That means when it can't be completely closed. Any temperature between 8 and 60 degrees is considered room temperature and unsafe. To repeat, room temperature is any temperature between 8 and 60 degrees. It is very important that we keep the food in this temperature span as little as possible. Therefore, we cool or freeze our leftovers as soon as we can using the blast chiller. The food must be put in the blast chiller after maximum 2 hours in room temperature. If these 2 hours are exceeded, the food should be thrown away. Once in the blast chiller, it must reach 8 degrees within maximum 4 hours. This will generally not be a problem, but if it fails to reach 8 degrees within this time, the food has to be thrown away. The food is considered to be in room temperature as soon as it has left the stove, the oven, or the thermobox. Use flat trays when cooling leftovers in the blast chiller, and better divide the food into a few different trays than filling one tray to the brim. This exponentially reduces the time required to chill the food. Please handle the probe cable with care as it is very expensive and easily damaged. Remember that the person who put the food in the blast chiller is responsible for taking it out and putting it in the fridge and marking it with contents and course day or date. When defrosting food, it cannot stay in room temperature for more than 2 hours, even if it is frozen. This means that either you have to defrost it in the fridge, in a bowl so that the condensation water is collected, or it has to reach 60 degrees in 2 hours, which is only possible in the oven or in the microwave oven. Make it a routine to always send down one tray of each dish estimated to be enough for the first shift and put it in the serving counter, and another tray estimated to be enough for the second shift and put it in the thermobox. Always remove the food from the first shift and serve the warm food from the thermobox for the second shift. It's very important that there is enough food left in the containers at all times. The students should feel that there is abundance of food, otherwise they might take less than they want. Leftovers should primarily be consumed by the servers. If there are more leftovers than can possibly be consumed by the servers, it is a good routine to either freeze or to serve those leftovers to the students already the day after to prevent leftovers from several days to be collected in the kitchen fridge. Always put out the leftovers sign when serving leftovers to the students. Keep an eye out for fridges and freezers being too hot or too cold. The temperatures can be adjusted and sometimes it's necessary to reorganize the food for better air circulation. Make it a routine to check fridge and freezer temperatures every time you open them. When serving cold items, do so on cooling pads and leave refrigerated items out in room temperature for as short amount of time as possible. Every time you cook or reheat food, you should sign the form A1 Check Up Temperature Hot Food on the wall in front of the stove. With your signature, you guarantee that the food has reached 70 degrees or more for 2 minutes or more. For the food to be disinfected from potentially dangerous bacteria, it needs to reach 70 degrees for at least 2 minutes. This is our minimum threshold. Feel free to heat it further and longer. If the food is heated to 80 degrees, for example, it is disinfected in only 6 seconds. When closing the vegetable fridge in the storage cabin, please close both doors at the same time. Otherwise, the second door will open as you close the first one. Make sure that all plastics around vegetables and fruit, for example bananas and cucumbers, are opened up to prevent condensation. Otherwise, they will get ruined. In the case of incidents such as broken glass in the kitchen, food poisoning, too high temperatures in the fridge, encountered mice or other vermin, or an accident where one of the servers gets or almost gets hurt, always notify the center manager and write an incident report which can be found in the kitchen manager's binder. Put the form in the binder filled in forms. It's better to fill out too many than too few incident reports. These are an important basis for the improvement of safety in the kitchen. If you're responsible for special diets, make sure to keep the dishes as simple as possible to reduce the workload. This can, for example, mean that you make a large amount of the same dish for several students, removing all ingredients they are allergic to, and that you serve the leftovers from this dish several days in a row. Make sure that everybody helps out until the work in the kitchen is finished. If you are done with your task, go back to the kitchen to see if there is anything else you can help out with. This makes the kitchen work much easier. Enjoy your service, be kind to yourself and your co-servers, and be happy.